Sometimes a car appears with every technical advantage it needs to stand tall in the executive world, yet it slips through public memory as if it never had a chance. Machines like this remind us how timing, perception, and market pressure can neutralize even a promising design. Picture a flagship built to deliver calm confidence on long roads, engineered with care, and positioned to show it could compete with anything in its class. Still, it faded into obscurity while less ambitious contenders found a lasting audience. Stories like this reveal how a product can excel on the road yet struggle in the showroom, how engineering can shine while recognition slips away, and how the gap between capability and reputation can grow wide enough to swallow a worthy contender. Today we revisit one of those overlooked automobiles, examining how a high point in technical effort ended up as a footnote and why that footnote now tells us more than it ever did when the car was new. If you enjoy deep dives like this, remember to like, subscribe, and comment which topic you want next. In this segment, I will focus on the 1987 Opel Senator and how it emerged as a flagship designed to show that a carefully engineered European executive sedan could meet the expectations of drivers who wanted quiet confidence, measured refinement, and long-distance stamina without resorting to a high-prestige badge. The 1987 Opel Senator arrived at a moment when many shoppers were becoming more selective about the balance between comfort, handling, and technology. It had to address all of those expectations while carrying the responsibility of representing the top of its brand. Its mission was not simple. It had to convince buyers that a mainstream manufacturer could produce an executive car on par with established premium names, yet do so without the pricing or marketing reach that its rivals enjoyed. When you look closely at the 1987 Opel Senator, you see a sedan shaped by thoughtful engineering choices, incremental refinements over earlier versions, and an approach that favored restrained sophistication over flashy statements. This approach created strengths in real-world driving while presenting challenges in market positioning. Understanding how the car was shaped by its era requires looking at its platform, its interior priorities, its mechanical tuning, and the expectations of a segment that demanded more than ever before. The 1987 Opel Senator stood on a sturdy platform that had been progressively refined throughout the decade. Engineers paid close attention to structural rigidity, ride isolation, and suspension geometry because the executive segment valued smoothness under a wide variety of road conditions. The front suspension design emphasized predictable steering response, while the rear arrangement aimed to absorb high-load situations without upsetting composure. This balance made the car suitable for both highway cruising and more dynamic roads. Placing emphasis on stability rather than outright cornering aggression gave the 1987 Opel Senator a calm personality that fit its mission. Shoppers looking for a composed long-distance car often appreciated this approach. Engineers also put effort into improving noise, vibration, and harshness control. Insulation materials, door seals, and underbody treatments were updated to ensure that wind and road noise remained low even at sustained speeds. These details mattered deeply in its intended class. An executive car could not feel flimsy or unrefined, and the 1987 Opel Senator worked hard to avoid those impressions. Inside the 1987 Opel Senator, the cabin layout reflected an era when comfort and clarity were considered essential qualifications in an upper-segment sedan. Controls were arranged to reduce distraction, materials aimed to project seriousness, and seating comfort was a priority. The seating position encouraged a balanced view of the road without forcing a performance-oriented posture. The car felt approachable, calm, and ready to handle extended travel. Designers integrated modest luxury elements without overwhelming the driver with gimmicks. This balance between practicality and premium intention gave the interior an understated quality that differed from the more expressive cabins of direct competitors. The climate control system, instrumentation, and accessory layout were built around long-term usability rather than short-term visual impact. This made the 1987 Opel Senator pleasant for daily use and especially effective on extended journeys. The decision to keep the environment restrained rather than extravagant aligned with the brand's sense of identity, but it also carried risk in a segment where the perception of luxury often influenced purchase choices as strongly as actual comfort. Powertrain choices for the 1987 Opel Senator typically centered on refined 6-cylinder engines tuned for smooth delivery rather than dramatic performance. Engineers prioritized linear response, fuel injection accuracy, and low mechanical sound levels. The result was powertrains that felt appropriate for a car of this size and mission. They were capable, quiet, and consistent even under heavy stress. Transmission pairings, both manual and automatic, aimed to complement the calm demeanor of the car. Shift patterns and gearing were chosen to maintain steady progress at highway speeds without fuss. Cooling systems, engine mounts, and intake arrangements were refined to keep operating behavior stable across different climates and driving situations. Reliability and predictability were key components of the car's identity. While acceleration was sufficient for the era, the true strength of the 1987 Opel Senator lay in its ability to maintain momentum comfortably, making it a trustworthy companion on long journeys. One of the most important qualities of the 1987 Opel Senator was how it behaved on extended routes. At a time when many executive sedans sought to impress with firm handling or aggressive quickness, this car leaned into refined stability. High-speed cruising felt secure thanks to careful aerodynamic attention and suspension tuning. Drivers often noted the sense of ease the car provided over hours of travel. Steering feel was calibrated for reassurance rather than athletic character. Slight adjustments kept the car centered without requiring constant correction. Braking performance benefited from thoughtful component selection. Disc sizing, ventilation, and pedal feel were designed to sustain confidence during repeated stops. All of these traits combined to give the 1987 Opel Senator a driving experience centered on composure. It did not ask for attention, and that quality was a strength for buyers seeking a calm and disciplined executive sedan. Practical considerations also played a large role in shaping the appeal of the 1987 Opel Senator. Generous trunk capacity, well-organized storage, and respectable fuel economy for its class gave it everyday usability. Families who needed room for luggage or business travelers who carried equipment often appreciated the space and layout. Maintenance access and component organization were reasonable for a car of its complexity. Service intervals were manageable, and parts were generally designed with durability in mind. This made ownership feel more grounded and predictable than some of the flashier rivals of the era. The car's understated engineering approach led to a reputation for steady, long-term dependability when maintained properly. That dependability, however, was not always enough to elevate the car above more image-driven alternatives in the executive segment. Understanding the challenges faced by the 1987 Opel Senator requires acknowledging the market environment of its era. Executive car buyers were highly influenced by the perceived prestige of a nameplate. The segment rewarded confidence, tradition, and large marketing budgets. Brands that lacked immediate recognition faced a steep climb. Even with solid engineering and a comfortable driving experience, the 1987 Opel Senator had to work against the reality that shoppers often associated executive status with more widely recognized badges. This meant that a car built with care and technical skill could be overshadowed by another manufacturer that simply had deeper historical momentum in the premium space. The situation created a gap between the qualities the 1987 Opel Senator offered and the attention it received. In the second segment, I continue examining the 1987 Opel Senator and shift from its engineering fundamentals to the market pressures that shaped its trajectory. Understanding these pressures clarifies why a car with respectable capability struggled to secure the attention it needed. The 1987 Opel Senator entered an environment where customer perception mattered as much as measurable performance. Many shoppers associated executive refinement with long-established premium identities. Even if the 1987 Opel Senator offered a mature ride, sturdy build quality, and thoughtful ergonomics, it faced a cultural expectation that true executive cars came from certain long-familiar sources. This made it challenging for the sedan to turn its real-world strengths into widespread recognition. Perception presented a hurdle that engineering alone could not overcome. By exploring how the 1987 Opel Senator fit into this competitive landscape, we can better understand how a well-constructed model became a quiet figure in a loud marketplace. A key factor shaping the 1987 Opel Senator's story was the way executive car buyers interpreted status. While the car delivered comfort and composure, shoppers often gravitated toward vehicles whose badges communicated a sense of established prestige. This dynamic created an uphill challenge. Even an accomplished sedan had to work harder if it lacked long-standing symbolic weight. The 1987 Opel Senator attempted to address this through refinement, practicality, and disciplined engineering, but these qualities spoke most clearly to experienced drivers rather than to shoppers motivated by image. As a result, it frequently appealed to a more selective group of buyers who valued comfort and reliability over name recognition. This limited the car's exposure, creating a feedback loop where smaller brand presence led to fewer buyers, which then reinforced modest visibility in the market. Marketing strategy also played a substantial role in the fate of the 1987 Opel Senator. Executive segment advertising often leaned heavily into aspiration, lifestyle, and projection of success. Vehicles with larger budgets could reinforce the idea that their product represented an essential step toward personal achievement. This messaging resonated with buyers who wanted a car that felt like a reward. The 1987 Opel Senator, however, focused more on substance than spectacle, and this difference shaped how audiences perceived the car. Without a major push to emphasize its strengths, the sedan had fewer opportunities to stand out against louder competitors. Its quiet competence worked beautifully on the road but made a subtler impression in brochures and showrooms, where narrative and image often carried disproportionate weight. Distribution patterns further influenced the visibility of the 1987 Opel Senator. Availability varied by region, and some markets saw limited stock or sporadic promotional support. When a car depends on strong first impressions to attract buyers, inconsistent distribution can weaken momentum. Potential customers who might have appreciated the 1987 Opel Senator's strengths sometimes never encountered it in the first place. Even when they did, lack of familiarity with the brand's upper segment models could lead to hesitation. Buyers who felt uncertain about resale value or long-term brand positioning often gravitated toward more familiar alternatives, not necessarily because they were superior, but because they felt like safer choices in a decision involving significant investment. Another factor shaping the reception of the 1987 Opel Senator was the increasing complexity of the executive segment in the late 1980s. Customers wanted comfort but also expected modern technology, safety improvements, and an image aligned with professional achievement. Balancing these demands required careful coordination between engineering and messaging. While the 1987 Opel Senator addressed comfort and practicality effectively, its technological positioning was more conservative. It did not chase novelty with the same intensity as some rivals. For many shoppers, this restraint felt dependable, but for others it suggested the car lagged behind more aggressively promoted alternatives. The challenge was not that the 1987 Opel Senator lacked substance, but that it approached innovation with measured pacing at a moment when the market rewarded bold statements. Perception of ownership costs also influenced purchase decisions. Buyers in the executive segment often weighed factors like maintenance expectations, service network strength, and long-term dependability. The 1987 Opel Senator generally performed well in real-world durability, but shoppers who were unfamiliar with the brand's upper-tier models sometimes expressed concern about long-term support and parts availability. This created a situation where the car's actual reliability was overshadowed by uncertainty about future repair planning. While many owners experienced relatively smooth long-term operation, the prospect of owning a less common executive model could discourage those who preferred an established track record. These hesitation points contributed to the car's modest market penetration even as it offered solid fundamentals. Resale value perceptions influenced the reception of the 1987 Opel Senator as well. Executive car buyers often consider depreciation when selecting a vehicle, and mainstream branded upper segment sedans sometimes experience steeper value drops than more iconic alternatives. The 1987 Opel Senator entered a market where image significantly shaped resale behavior. Even a well-maintained example could face quicker value decline simply because buyers perceived the badge as less prestigious. This discouraged some new car shoppers who wanted to protect long-term value, further reducing the car's reach. Although depreciation does not define a vehicle's intrinsic merit, it shapes buyer psychology in a segment where financial considerations play a large role. Another important aspect of the 1987 Opel Senator's story lies in how automotive culture evaluated subtlety. Some drivers appreciated a car that prioritized quiet refinement, while others wanted something that expressed presence and ambition. The sedan chose subtlety, and that choice made it appealing to a thoughtful niche while simultaneously limiting broader excitement. Shoppers who sought pronounced styling cues or aggressive performance metrics often overlooked the 1987 Opel Senator because it did not attempt to present itself as bold or attention-grabbing. Instead, it embodied restraint. This characteristic helped it age gracefully but posed challenges during its original market run. Subtlety worked well for long-term appreciation but offered limited short-term impact. The trajectory of the 1987 Opel Senator also highlights how product cycles shape perception. As newer models and updated rivals arrived, expectations shifted quickly. Executive sedans introduced in the late 1980s often featured fast-evolving technology, increasingly aerodynamic designs, and bolder marketing narratives. Against this backdrop, the 1987 Opel Senator's measured personality sometimes appeared conservative. While many of its features remained competitive, the rapid pace of change meant that anything perceived as traditional could be overshadowed by announcements of newer upgrades elsewhere. Buyers who prioritized the latest innovations found other options more suited to their expectations, even when real-world performance differences were minimal. In the third segment, I focus on how the 1987 Opel Senator has evolved in reputation over time. Its strengths, once overlooked, now help define its lasting character among enthusiasts and analysts. The 1987 Opel Senator began life as a carefully engineered executive sedan built to satisfy drivers who valued calm refinement, long-distance comfort, and predictable handling. Those traits positioned it as a quietly capable alternative to more image-driven competitors. As years passed and the market shifted toward increasingly complex electronics and sharper styling cues, the steady composure of the 1987 Opel Senator gained new appreciation. Retrospective evaluations highlight how its engineering aged gracefully. Its chassis tuning, interior ergonomics, and balanced powertrains remain coherent long after flashier contemporaries lost their appeal. This shift in perspective allows the 1987 Opel Senator to stand as an example of how restrained design can hold long-term value. Collectors who now seek out the 1987 Opel Senator often do so for its mechanical honesty. The car presents a clear expression of its era without the layers of electronic mediation found in later models. Its straightforward controls, measured responses, and grounded driving feel reflect a time when executive comfort leaned heavily on mechanical refinement. The car's reliability, when properly maintained, reinforces this viewpoint. The 1987 Opel Senator demonstrates how sustained engineering choices can contribute to long-term resilience. Enthusiasts appreciate this combination of usability and authenticity. It provides a driving experience that feels refreshingly direct compared to newer vehicles. This renewed interest gives the car a second chapter that differs significantly from its modest original reception. Examining the 1987 Opel Senator today also highlights how automotive culture has changed. Modern buyers often look for narratives that emphasize heritage, engineering purity, or standout identity. Ironically, the very traits that limited the 1987 Opel Senator in its original marketplace now speak loudly to those searching for vehicles with character and clarity. Its calm styling avoids excess, its cabin layout favors function, and its drivetrain tuning prioritizes consistency. These qualities appeal to drivers who prefer substance over spectacle. What once felt conservative now feels intentional. The car's understated nature allows it to represent a thoughtful alternative to overstated modern designs. This transformation in perception shows how context shapes appreciation across generations. The late-life legacy of the 1987 Opel Senator also brings attention to the broader challenges of elevating a mainstream brand into the executive tier. Analysts often study the car to understand what happens when engineering ambition meets market hesitation. It demonstrates that technical competence alone cannot shift buyer expectations without strong branding support. However, it also proves that true quality can outlast limited marketing impact. The 1987 Opel Senator thrives in retrospective evaluations because its core attributes hold up under scrutiny. It performs well not through nostalgia but through tangible capability. As a result, it becomes a useful reference point when assessing how executive cars mature over time. Its case reinforces that long-term credibility often emerges from genuine craftsmanship rather than initial hype. Viewed from today's perspective, the 1987 Opel Senator teaches an important lesson about the relationship between recognition and merit. Its story shows that valuable products can remain overlooked during their prime, only to gain appreciation once external pressures fade. This shift underscores how automotive reputation often changes as priorities move from image to experience. The 1987 Opel Senator, once quiet in a crowded marketplace, now stands confidently in historical analysis as an example of disciplined engineering and understated design. Its legacy rests not on bold claims or widespread fame but on a consistent commitment to driver-oriented refinement. In many ways, the car has finally reached the audience that always would have understood it best. In this closing summary, I revisit the 1987 Opel Senator to highlight how its journey from ambitious executive sedan to underappreciated classic reveals deeper truths about automotive identity, customer expectations, and long-term reputation. By understanding the path of the 1987 Opel Senator, we see how engineering substance can outlast marketplace hesitation. The 1987 Opel Senator began as a confident flagship built with careful tuning, balanced performance, and a focus on real-world comfort. These qualities gave it the tools to satisfy drivers who valued refinement over spectacle, yet they also limited its initial impact in a segment that often favored image. Despite its composed chassis, mature interior layout, and smooth six-cylinder powertrains, the 1987 Opel Senator struggled to rise above perception-driven challenges that shaped buying behavior in its class. Customers tended to prioritize the symbolic value of badges, leaving the car in a quiet corner of the showroom. Over the decades, however, shifting priorities within the enthusiast community illuminated the strengths that were always present. The 1987 Opel Senator gained renewed appreciation for its mechanical honesty, its relaxed driving character, and its understated approach to executive comfort. This change in perspective shows how context influences admiration. What once felt reserved now feels refreshing in a landscape filled with sharper designs and thicker layers of digital complexity. For many modern drivers, the appeal of the 1987 Opel Senator lies in how it expresses a clear vision through carefully executed fundamentals. It demonstrates that thoughtful engineering can remain relevant even when fashion moves on. The car's legacy also offers a practical reminder for industry observers. Success depends not only on product quality but also on how effectively a brand communicates value, builds trust, and aligns identity with customer expectations. The 1987 Opel Senator stands today as a case study in the importance of balancing ambition with recognition, showing how quiet competence can earn lasting respect even if initial visibility was limited. By reflecting on its story, we gain insight into how vehicles become appreciated long after their production ends. In doing so, the 1987 Opel Senator reaches a new audience that values clarity, restraint, and engineered calm. Thank you for spending time with this deep dive. If you enjoyed exploring the legacy of a car shaped by substance and subtlety, feel free to like, subscribe, and comment which topic you want next.